Well, Chris, I appreciate you setting this up and having me as a speaker. Always appreciate the opportunity to speak with high-level folks like this group, specifically in the accounting and finance space. Like Chris mentioned, I've got well, it's not extremely long, fairly thorough background in the accounting space. I've held every role from Fortune 500 companies all the way down to small privately held organizations of internal auditor all the way up through corporate controller. Never sat in a CFO chair, partly because I decided to leave and start my own deal. But that kind of rounded me out. So when we talk about career development, acquiring talent, retaining talent within the accounting space, I've fairly knowledgeable and have a good pulse on what's going on out there. So the program that I came up with for this is talent strategies for building high performing accounting and finance teams. Going to focus on retention as well as we move through this. A little bit about myself. I kind of touched on it a little bit, but I founded Artisan Recruitment back in 2020. It's a solopreneur deal. It's just me. And there's a reason for that, which I'll get into. But I have a bachelor's degree and an MBA in accounting. I started sitting for the exam. I passed the first two sections. The second section I passed while shortly after my wife had given birth to our first daughter, and the rest went downhill from there. Just having a young child, I just kind of bowed out of it. Never wanted to do anything in the public space, but it was a certification that I was, kind of going to pursue. Spent 15 years in the accounting space, pretty much all within manufacturing. So started out my career with Sherwin-Williams in their internal audit department, moved over to their manufacturing division where I was a plant controller, moved on from there to a privately held organization that was $40 million roughly top line. 6 or 7 months into that, we were acquired by the largest manufacturer of debit and credit cards in North America. I led an ERP implementation at two of the site facilities, and then became the corporate controller of that organization. Was owned by a private equity firm, roughly $300 million organization. From there, my wife and I relocated to Arizona, where we purchased our first organization. It was a manufacturing company. Owned and operated that for about 2 years. We acquired a local competitor, combined the two, and ran that for 8 years. Sold the business. Actually, the timing was perfect, right before the whole COVID-19 deal, and kind of bounced around, figuring out what I wanted to do. And that's when I determined that the gap that I saw on the recruiting side of things. So I wanted to come about that. Started my own company, and I just do things differently. I guess it's a little more customized than your Robert Half's or the larger organizations. Not to speak poorly of them because I don't want to, but most of those are there's an account manager, and then it's flipped over to a team of recent college grads that go through resumes, just start throwing stuff over the fence, trying to get something to stick, and that's not how I choose to operate at all. So that's kind of a high level overview of my background and kind of what got me to where I'm at today. Um, Key takeaways from this: basically, um, a strong accounting and finance team within an organization not only drives accurate reporting, but also compliance, and more specifically, strategic growth initiatives. So the 4 points that I'm looking to cover today are proper team structure and how that supports the growth of an organization, how the CFOs play a direct role in talent acquisition and retention, AI and automation. Everybody's talking about it, right? So they are changing the game, but not necessarily in the way that everybody thinks, maybe. And then having a strategic hiring approach, and why that's critical to the success of building a solid team. Um, First and foremost, what is the right team structure? The answer is there is no one size fits all. Every company is in a different growth mode, different place within that growth, different trajectories, the complexity of the organization, and or specific industry needs that might come around. I primarily work with, I'm going to call it small to mid-sized businesses. So up to, it's not small, but up to $200 million. My real sweet spot is at $40 to $150 million. Mostly because they're growing, they're sophisticated, but not to the point where they've got a defined hiring process for specialty roles such as, controller, director of finance, CFO. They might be really good at hiring, for shop managers or warehouse employees, but when it comes to the specialization within the accounting and finance field, that they're not really sophisticated enough to get there. Scaling up is kind of the next step. So, you're going to hire a bookkeeper to assist initially, and then you might bring on a staff accountant or an accounting manager. Now we're scaling up. We get to the point where we've got to have compliance. We have to have processes built. That's where you're going to bring a controller on board. As that controller sees fit and things start to grow, maybe we need a cost accountant or an FP&A individual. Those are all things that have to be analyzed by that high-level CFO and or business owner of the organization. 50 million is kind of that sweet spot that I have found where we start putting CFOs in place. Now, again, every business is different. If you've got a $40 million business and it's a very high volume of transactions or a very complex process, we probably have a CFO in place sooner than 50 million. But I would say 50 million is kind of that sweet spot where we start to see that. And I know, most of you are high-level executives, so you already know this, but we're looking for capital allocation, M&A analysis, or identifying opportunities and going through that process and the due diligence, and then along with risk management. Going back to what we had touched on earlier, integration of process automation and AI forecasting. Those are things that old school CFOs may not be as keen on. I'm here to tell you, you don't have to be keen on it, but we got to start looking at folks that we can bring in to help understand that, help do that process. The one thing that I see is I've been asked a couple of times by CFOs over the last 6 months, I need somebody that's really good at AI. Okay, great. What kind of specific skills are we looking for that we want to apply AI to? They don't know. So we need to be careful with throwing the AI word out there, or acronym rather, and automation. We need to really, really understand what we're looking for. And you can't build your team structure without having a very, very clear picture of what the role looks like. And we'll talk about that a little bit further. But one thing that I'm very big on in all the stuff that I'm engaged with is, great, thank you for contacting me. I'd love to talk about the opportunity with you, but I want to learn about the opportunity first. We're going to go soup to nuts, top to bottom, and make sure that every question I might potentially have is answered. And whether the CFO is involved in the hiring process or they delegate that to the controller, I still want to understand from the CFO what their vision is, because what their vision is might not be the way that the controller explains it to me. And if the CFO has a hand in the hiring decision, we need to understand who, or rather the viewpoints of all of the decision makers, so that we don't go get 4 candidates that are great and they match exactly what that controller wanted, but the vision and the view was skewed from what the CFO actually wanted, and there was a lost in translation issue there. CFOs have a huge role in attracting and retaining top talent, and this is a very important thing right here. Recruiting and retention starts with the leadership. Period. End of story. if we've got individuals, whether it's a CEO that's looking for a CFO that's looking for a director of finance or a controller or even a staff accountant, um, if they're not fully engaged at the top, this isn't going to work. Um, Hiring strategies, proactive versus reactive hiring. We all know what that means, right? Um, you, as the leader of the accounting and finance team, should have a pretty good understanding of whether Jimmy, the controller, is happy, or Susie, the staff accountant or accounting manager, might be having some personal issues that are going to require her to take a different role. I'm not saying you need to be buddy buddy with all of these folks, but we need to have a very good understanding of how the team is operating, where things stand, so that we can be proactive in this process rather than reactive. The other side of it is having a pipeline of candidates is always good. I'm the recruiter. I'm the pesky one that's always bothering you as the CFO or as the controller. But at the end of the day, what I'm sharing with you is, hey, I've got a candidate that might fit your needs. I have no idea if you have a need today, but here's somebody that's a standout. Maybe take a look at them. While you probably don't like getting those emails from me, excuse me, or others in our industry, they are very good to keep an eye on, because if Jimmy and staff account or cost accounting does decide, hey, I'm out of here, you might recall, hey, Gannon sent me a staff accountant or a cost accountant 2 weeks ago. Let me reach out and see if that guy is still available. Or if he's not, what's Gannon got in his pipeline of others? Um, compensation benchmarking is huge as well. So the fastest way to have a job stay unfilled for a long time is to not be anywhere in the ballpark from a compensation standpoint. Um, this is something that from the top down, you should be having conversations about. The CFO and or the controller should be talking, on a annual basis at the very least of, hey, this is what the market looks like for a really good staff accountant right now. Susan is making right about that number, but she's doing a really good job. We know what the cost is going to be if we lose her and have to replace her. So maybe let's go ahead and be proactive, give her that little increase today so that she's happy. She's not going to go looking anywhere. And if somebody comes to her offering her a $2,000 raise, she's going to say, you know what, I'm happy. They take care of me here. I'm compensated fairly. I'm not interested. The other thing that's really big out there right now, fractional CFOs and controllers. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I pretend to know everything about that world, because I don't. I focus on full-time permanent staffing roles rather than bringing in fractional or interim type folks. But I will tell you, this is a very big trend out there. Some of you, if you are currently looking for gigs right now, probably have dabbled in this a little bit. And if you haven't, I'd highly encourage you to. It's pretty easy to market your skills as an experienced CFO and or controller to grab the attention of somebody. Ultimately, we do see those lead to full-time roles and offers at some point. What frequency does that happen? I can't tell you exactly, but it does happen. I have seen it happen. The other side of the proactive versus reactive hiring, 80. There was a study done. 86% of top performers, when they're recruited away from an organization or that take new roles, were recruited away. They weren't actively looking. So they were passive. Somebody came to them like myself and said, hey, I've got this great opportunity based on what I've seen on LinkedIn or wherever. I believe this might be a fit. We go through the opportunity. They go, yeah, I'm not really looking right now, but I'm open to a conversation. Those move on, lead to new hires at a new company. Again, that number last year was 86%. So pretty high rate versus a job posting where You're only getting folks that are looking, which isn't a bad thing, because there are tons of very qualified folks that are looking. But you've got somebody reaching out on your behalf with a very specific role and skill set that they're looking for, and we go find those people directly, without you having to go through 20 to 30 to 200 resumes, whatever that number looks like. Retention and career pathing is the easiest way to save yourself money as an organization. These are things that people care about. Of course, money's important, and we've talked about this. You see stuff on LinkedIn all the time about employees don't care about the ping pong table and the free lunch Fridays, and those things are great. Don't get me wrong, but these three things that I've got listed here are really what employees care about. Discuss internal paths to promotion. If I approach somebody and say, "Hey, I've got this opportunity," specifically a younger individual, "Hey, I've got this opportunity. I'd like you to come over. This is the team that you'll be joining. Oh, by the way, the next 3 levels of individuals above you just started as well, and they're all early in their career. So there's probably nowhere for you to go, but come on over." Folks aren't going to do that. So internal path to promotion is a very, very big thing, specifically for millennials and Gen X. They want to understand, if I come to you and join your organization, which sounds like a great opportunity, what does my growth from a professional standpoint look like? The second thing goes along with that. It's upskilling and cross training. You need to invest in your employees to get them additional skills, whether that's, hey, we're going to send you to learn. We're going to send you to learn business analytics tools. We're going to send you to super advanced Excel classes. We're going to send you to leadership training, or teaching your staff accountant the ins and outs of cost accounting, and teaching your cost accountant how to become a business analyst. Those are all other opportunities for them to gain additional valuable skills that might lead them to a promotion down the road that isn't on the traditional path of accounting and finance. The last thing, of course, has been beat to death over the last 5 years. Work arrangement. Full remote, hybrid, full in office. I will tell you that I am not a big believer in full remote. I mean, obviously there's certain roles that require it, right? Sales folks, whatever. Specifically from an accounting and finance standpoint, I don't believe there's a whole lot of future in full remote. We're already starting to see organizations bringing folks back to the office finally. But I also believe that the full, 7 to 5, 5 days a week, very little flexibility in office roles are also going to start going by the wayside a little bit. We might still see the 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, but there's going to be flexibility without being brutally questioned. My belief, hybrid is a very viable option that can save you dollars with your employees, but still have accountability for getting their work done while giving them a little bit of freedom. On average, I have had folks tell me, "Hey, here's the number that I'm looking for, but I am willing to take a little bit less if we can find a hybrid role, because I'm currently in office and I don't really want to stay in office." Of course, everybody's saying I don't want to stay in office. Like I said, I don't think that's going to go away, but you can save yourself headache, money, and increase your retention by offering, some sort of a in office with lots of flexibility and or hybrid role. The big AI word and automation. So they are reshaping accounting and finance. There's no doubt about that. But we need to be very careful of what we're using it for, and very specific. So I don't know what portion of the folks on this call are actually using automation or AI today. You can use it in a very basic form, like RPA is robotic process automation. lots of simple features. Large organizations use them, like scanning in accounts payable invoices and having them having a reader that will grab the pertinent information, load it into the system, the ERP system, um, and kind of remove some of that data entry. Still needs to be reviewed by somebody, but the review can happen a lot faster than the actual data entry by an individual. I can tell you, I graduated college in 2006. So back in 2006, Sherwin-Williams was using a software for for accounts payable back then that would scan it, process it, and then it just took a bunch of college interns sitting around reviewing the data, making sure it's accurate, pressing a button. Even back then, the technology had the ability to learn like where things were on certain invoices. So if you got an invoice from DuPont, you knew that it was chemicals, you knew where to look for the invoice number, where to look for the date, etc. So obviously things have come a long way since then, but those processes and automations are out there for use. I've got a buddy that's a CFO at a manufacturing organization in Cleveland, and he was talking about how they just had to produce forecasts for their the bank, and he said, "Hey, you know what? Let's use AI, just see what it comes up with." They threw it into an AI format, told it what the assumptions were, and it spit out a pretty good forecast. And he said, "Honestly, I'd be lying to you if I told you I didn't have to tweak it a whole lot." Um, all that being said, is AI and automation ever going to replace, staff accountants, controllers, and CFOs? Probably not. Is it going to reduce the headcount that we need on those teams? Probably. It's fine, but it's never going to fully replace the function because of the human element that is there. Cloud-based ERP systems are fantastic. I don't know what the ratio is of folks on this call, but assuming that you are using, ERP systems that are more than, QuickBooks or Sage or any of those, cloud-based ERP systems are huge. They allow for flexibility and access to data. You could be traveling on the other side of the world, pull up your company's information, be able to see real-time data inputs, etc. Future-proofing your team, hire for professional adaptability. So, we're not necessarily looking at the old square of this is exactly what a staff accountant looks like. I'm getting a lot of, hey, I need to bring somebody in that is a staff accountant that might have a little bit of cost and cost accounting, and we can shape into an assistant controller in 2 years. We're already starting to think ahead, 2 steps ahead, rather than just filling the immediate need that we have. I just filled a controller role at the end of last year that the goal was to bring somebody in that is a controller today, can come in, get their hands dirty, get in the weeds of the day-to-day accounting, but in a year and a half to 2 years, as their plan is set to double, move into a CF role, backfill their controller role. The skill sets are there. That's a tough find. And ultimately, we did find them 3 candidates that fit that. They far exceeded the dollar amount that they were willing to spend. So we ended up finding somebody that was almost there. So it's kind of a give and take. You're definitely going to get what you pay for. And that's where it comes down to, let's fully understand what we're asking for before we go out and just fire away and start the job search process. Technical skills are in demand. Obviously in the accounting space, the Microsoft Office suite, specifically Excel, business BI tools are huge now. And what I was talking about earlier, a lot of folks are going to an accountant slash analyst hybrid role. So they want folks that are not just, we'll call them bean counters. They're not just putting expenses within categories. They're actually able to sit back, analyze what that data is showing, make suggestions, and move on. And that is at the accountant level. That's not the controller level. So things are getting a bit more robust as we continue to move down these paths. Last one is building the right recruitment strategy. This is where strategic data-driven approach is essential. Everybody knows the cost of a bad hire. I've got on here turnover cost 2x salary and lost productivity, rehiring and retraining. That's not necessarily 2x of what their base salary is. That's if we identify a bad hire within the first, call it 3 months, 3 to 4 months. We're gonna have sunk cost of 2x of what we've paid them. Not only paid them, but also their benefits at that point, because A, they're not getting the job done in a way we need it. B, we're gonna have to put time and resources back into rehiring, and then also the retraining aspect. This is probably one of the bigger ones, which is cultural misfits can tank the morale, and upset other folks within your department that you might not want to leave. So this is where once we get somebody on board, we need to make a pretty quick decision of, hey, is this a good fit or not? Because what will happen is we're going to lose really good folks that we don't want to lose because we're not addressing the elephant in the room, which is we made a bad hire. We've talked to that individual. We've tried to coach him along. It's not working, but we're still sitting on it. We haven't pulled the trigger. Other long-term effects, depending on where that person is in the hierarchy, you could have poor or weak controls in place. You could have huge compliance risks, and you could have missed opportunities from a business standpoint because we weren't able to fully analyze the data that we were being given. And, unfortunately, financials are a month or 2 months behind. We're missing out on cost savings and or investment opportunities. What's working in today's market? This is what we talked about: direct sourcing versus job posting. Job posts do work. I'm not here to tell you they don't. But when you bring a recruiter on board, an external recruiter, that is, you're not paying us to fill the role specifically. Or not to search for a hire. You're paying us for the network that we already have. I talk to individuals every single day, whether they're looking for a new role, whether I've sourced them for an existing role that I'm working on, or hey, we connected on LinkedIn and we're having a 25-minute conversation just to get to know each other. I'm building my network so that a month from now, if I get a contracted role and I remember, hey, I talked to Chris a week ago. Chris is a great fit for this. I'm going to have a conversation with Chris about what this role looks like. If it's something he wants to pursue further, we put the two together and we go from there. Always be a recruiting mindset. Again, recruiting firms are constantly sending out, we call them in our industry, we call them MPC emails. So most placeable candidate. So if I've got Jim from the East Coast, and I send him to 15 manufacturing facilities on the East Coast, maybe they don't need a controller today. But again, if Susan leaves, or Susan starts to perform poorly, I know that Gannon just sent me Jim, and we can bring him on board and have a conversation. So just because you're not actively hiring doesn't mean you should stop looking. When to leverage specialized recruiting firms? Again, high impact roles, C-level, VP level, director level, and then specifically within accounting, controller, assistant controller, accounting manager. I work all the way down to staff accountant levels. I'll get involved in roles that are smaller if needed, but typically not. Anything that requires speed. So, hey, we got to have this role filled yesterday. There's a company that I've had 4 conversations with on the East Coast. They've had a controller role posted for 2 months. Had a conversation with them 5 months ago about, hey, we know that we have this need coming up and we know that we need to fill this role, but we're not necessarily ready to pull the trigger now. They posted it in December. We just had a conversation yesterday of, hey, we've had this thing posted for 2 months. We're not seeing what we want. Let's come on board. So we had an onboarding call. I've already got 4 candidates in mind that are in my network today. I'm in Scottsdale. These folks need to sit in Charleston, South Carolina. But I have a global net, or not global. I have a national footprint and a national network. So we'll see what happens, but I suspect that we'll have this role filled inside of 3 to 4 weeks. And that's just going as fast as they want to go. And the last one would be industry specific roles. So if you are an organization that's in the cheese industry, let's just call it that, and you need to bring on a controller, but they have to have specific experience within the dairy market, that is when you would probably reach out to a recruiter and say, hey, I'm raising my hand here because I know that there are only 200 companies in the US that might be a good fit for this. Can you go reach out to those 200 companies on our behalf, try to find us a controller? That's where you want the additional help. Closing question and answer. So bottom line is, as the individual responsible for the accounting and finance function, build a scalable team structure where you can start layering people in as you see fit. Maybe people get promoted as we move through that, but we're building it in a scalable manner that we can grow with ease. CFOs, CEOs, top level leadership has to be active in the talent strategy. It's not just an HR function. It's not just a controller function if they are the ones that have to go find a staff accountant. CFO needs to be involved. CEO needs to be involved. Prepare for shifts in the usage of AI and automation. It's exactly what it sounds like. You don't necessarily need to be a master of it. You don't need to be the jack of all trades as the leader of that unit, but we do need to be prepared for it, and we need to start bringing folks on board that might have an idea of what we're looking for. And hiring is a long-term strategy. Those that view it that way will get the results. Hiring is a function. I make posts all the time on LinkedIn, and I try to entertain, but also provide nuggets of useful stuff. Those that view hiring as we only do it when we have to are not going to be successful at it. This is also part of the reason why recruiters are good. So the analogy I posted a couple weeks ago was my daughters ride barrel horses. They barrel race out here in Arizona, and I grew up on a farm in the Midwest, but we just had cattle and tractors, no horses. So I didn't start learning how to ride until July of this past year, and I just started to learn how to rope. It's taken a lot of practice, but if you put me up against somebody that's a professional roper and does it on a daily basis, they're going to smoke me every time because I don't practice very often and they're doing it daily. So when you have to hire for a critical role, like a controller, like an accounting manager, like a CFO, if your HR team is the one that's responsible for that, it's going to be a long haul because they don't fill those roles more than once or twice every couple of years. That's where it's great to bring in a recruiter that specializes within that space, that niche, that can help you, because we are in it every single day. And that goes for those of you that are looking for employment, whether you're currently out of work or you're looking to make a move. I'm here. I love to have conversations. You never know what might come across my desk today, tomorrow, next week. But also, if it's a good fit and you're open to it, I can prepare a deck where we put you in that NPC profile and start anonymously sending it out to folks that may or may not have an interest in hiring in the very near future. So with that, Chris, I'm going to turn it back over to you and the group for any questions that you might have specific to what I presented, and or questions about specific job search that you might have, whether it's for your organization or what you're currently going through as a candidate yourself.